comercio, relaciones económicas y temas legales. La ponencia del profesor se titula Teoría y demostración de una sesión de interpretación en línea. Le damos la bienvenida, profesor.
Gracias, Héctor. Muy amable de tu parte. Pues aquí me tienen de nueva cuenta. Les agradezco mucho y más que nada felicitar al comité organizador por obviamente el desarrollo de estas conferencias, este encuentro. Básicamente es un encuentro cultural. Las dos profesoras que me antecedieron, ¿qué les puedo decir? Que a final de cuentas tienen mucha razón, ¿no? Porque estamos hablando de pues competencias, ¿no? En este ámbito de la traducción y de la interpretación. Les voy a compartir la presentación que tengo para el día de hoy. Esto es, si me lo permite, aquí está. Perdón. Y hablando de competencias, talking about, actually proficiency, okay. Share, okay, ahí está, ¿no? Okay. Okay, you can actually see it, right, everyone? Okay, so talking about proficiency in this field of translation, so I decided to basically talk about, well, what is translation, or actually, what do we do in translation, right? So we'll start with defining at least what is translation, or what does it mean to translate? You know, so obviously to be able to express something that is stated in another language, right? And obviously either you do it orally or you do it written. And it's probably very good to be able to make a difference between translation and interpretation, which basically we've been talking throughout these conferences about precisely what is translation and what is interpretation. So basically it's the same process, no, just different modalities of performance, right? One is written and the other is done in oral. According to Hurtado, which is Amparo Hurtado, mentions that this process of interpretation is a communicative process that consists in reformulating, obviously, the text with resources in the target language. You know, that is, if you're translating from English to Spanish or from Spanish into English. So the translator or interpreter basically becomes a cultural mediator. And those of you who have been listening on to these conferences, you have heard the importance of biculturalism or actually culture within the languages. You cannot separate the learning of a language without learning its culture. So it becomes an important factor. How we characterize the translating task? Well, we can characterize it in terms of visual presentations, right? On-site translation and written translation. When I think of the differences, right, in between interpretation and the process of written translation, well, anyone can probably attest to the fact that translators can basically translate between 2,000 and 5,000 words a day. Okay, and we're doing an interpretation session between the 20 minutes and an hour. Well, the actual words can be between 4,000, right, in 30 minutes, right? Or according to Christopher's, that in GLOT, which in 2005, you know, they make this test in terms of how you know you can originate languages. How many words per minute can someone speak at a particular given time, right? So it's always a complex ability. It's the ability of the translator, or in this case, the interpreter, to be able to do both things and actually, well, count the words in a particular minute or second or whatever, right? So anyway, basically we're talking about quantitative type of language, right? So within the context, right, either we think in terms, obviously, your mental capacities, the representation of the language, the evaluation, how how we capture the message and how we translate that message, no? And it becomes important. So what is the addressee understanding in a particular given task? So it's always a chore in itself. So we can look at some approaches in terms of what language or how can we look at translation. We can look at from the linguistic point of view, right? From the text itself, from a cognitive a point of view as well, and obviously the social cultural as a communicative action. If we look at the area of linguistics, obviously translation goes hand in hand. You cannot separate obviously the aspect of understanding language in its full capacity, right? And translation in terms of looking at as an everyday exercise. No, the interpreters and translators who just before me talked about is basically doing it on an everyday basis. You cannot kind of stop translating or interpreting one day because everybody, well, you would know, but if you stop translating, interpreting, or speaking the language, right, for more than a month, well, then everybody would know, right? So it's kind of like a continuous thing that you need to be practicing all the time. Linguistics does not really depend on all those extra linguistic aspects of language, you know, where language comes from, how we associate language, you know, the interlinguistic aspects of language in that description and how we compare languages themselves, right? So we can look at different approaches, you know, according to authors like Banet and Garnett, right? Well, you know, they talk about translation, you know, can be in the form of loan, no? You can simply loan words from other languages, no? Tracing, which is calc or calca, as we say in Spanish, calcar, meaning word for word, right? Literal translation, no? Basically saying the same thing as, or try to say the same thing. Oblique translation, modulation, and transposition and amplification of certain texts and words. The textual approach, way back in the 70s, no, this began to look translation as a discipline. Before that, it was basically an art. It was something that everybody would say, well, not everybody, of course, but those who spoke languages were able to basically, you know, translate almost anything, right? Or at least they said they were able to translate anything. There was no, well, we didn't really have a professionalization in the area. No, there was no. There were not many schools, in fact, teaching translation or interpretation. In fact, today there's no schools actually basically, you know, dealing with interpretation in themselves. You know, just the teaching as a subject, no, the subject of translation as a whole. So the textual approaches, right, obviously are nourished by linguists and you know, and doing obviously discourse analysis, understanding the language, understanding and analyzing discourse and what discourse actually means is going beyond what is being stated. It's not just the words themselves, but words, you know, what words actually mean. We don't speak in isolated words, we speak in ideas and concepts. And that's what the translator needs to understand, you know, that he's translating, interpreting those words and concepts into the target language. So some of the approaches take into account, obviously, the communicative situations, the relationship between the speakers, your cognitive strategies, you know, how you construct the message, no, and obviously your prior knowledge of language, and of course your cultural language. So biculturality here, bilingualism, biculturality becomes an important aspect in translation and interpretation. Some examples of textual approach, you know, authors like Van Dijk, Van Dijk, who basically talks about the generative inspiration that tries methods and procedures that apply in terms of a certain level. What does it really mean when someone says in Spanish, no me voy a dar por bien servido? No, I mean, obviously you're initiating the fact that there's coercion. There's going to be, you know, a bribe being implied. No, I mean, so it's kind of this language of that particular thing that you're asking, especially when you go to like a service window, no, you know, and I'm sure you've been approached by people, you know, when they ask, you know, what kind of service are you looking for? Now, I can help you with this service. Now, someone is always going to offer something in order to do some kind of a service for you. No, Holiday, right, Evelyn Holiday starts by structuralism, not to develop concept of how language actually functions. The Bagrade and Dresser, they approach the text, you know, in the area of psycholinguistics, meaning, you know, how they approach the idea of how language actually works. Gregory and Carroll, and of course Widdowson, right? They talk about the didactics of languages. Austin and Greece, where they study the performance, you know, of language in terms of the symbols and what do these symbols actually mean. Hatim and Mason, they study the translation as a communication act. A cognitive approach on translation obviously focuses on mental processes. How does the translator carry these mental processes, right? How the translator knows that here someone mentioned, fake it till you make it, no, kind of thing. I mean, if you understand that concept of this idea, no, kind of thing, no, it's a finge, no, finge hasta que lo consigas, or you know, play the role. No, I'm always telling my students, you got to play the role. You know, if you're going to be a language teacher, well, play the role of a language teacher. If you're going to be an interpreter, well, play the role of an interpreter, right? There's always a challenge, right? According to Hurtado, sees that this approach, you know, has two perspectives: the theory of meaning and understanding, interpretation, right? And the relevance of Spivak and Wilson, that analyzes how the translator and the mental behaviors kind of translate things, right? Hurtado, on the other hand, kind of uses the technique, you know, the TAP, which is simply that thinking out loud protocol, which means en voz alta, no, kind of translators, you know, even when you're doing text translation, well, you kind of need to say it aloud, no, say it aloud so you can hear yourself and actually think of the right words, the right structure, you know, how you're gonna set up the different issues within the language, right? What words are you going to be using? How these words are going to be, you know, taking meaning as you put them in paper or as you listen to these words. All right, other examples, of course, you know, interpretive model. You know, simply you interpret what people are saying. You know, it's not actually word for word or text interpretation. No, or translation. You need to kind of, well, you know, find out what are they talking about. You know, when someone says, "Hey, I'm going to be talking about broiler chickens." Oh, I know the language, right? I know English. Broiler. I can translate it to what? Asado, no, a la parrilla. Right? And chickens, pollos a la parrilla. Well, guess what? I got news for you. No, it's this very specialized particular area. No, in other words, you're talking not you know, you're talking about growing chickens. No, like a culture thing. No, it's an activity that people actually do, and there's a whole science, you know, in terms of broiler chickens. Okay, does anybody know what broiler chicken actually means? Right? Well, I didn't. I had to go and investigate, just like you know, as a researcher, you have to go there and say, well, can you explain what do you mean by broiler chickens? You know, and says, well, you know, it's pollos de engorda. Granjas de pollos de engorda. That's what you're going to be talking about. So when you refer to a broiler house, you're talking about el gallinero, right? No. Marco mentioned a lot of things, you know, that come empirically, you know, how you experience by reading and being in contact with people, you know, being a telephone interpreter, right? Kind of, you know, I mean, you understood that how sometimes it's easy because you can ask people, you know, what they actually mean, you know, beforehand, because when you're doing the interpretation, and especially if you're in a booth or something, you know, it will be very difficult, right, to say, well, can you stop for a minute so I can understand what you're saying? You can't. No, it's the preparation, the work that goes before, you know, actually doing an interpretation, and even, you know, a translation. No, even though you have the text, you have all your dictionaries, no, you have all your materials, sure, but you're going to find words that are not in the dictionary, or terms that are not common, like I just told you about broiler chickens. What do I know about broiler chickens? I was raised in the even though I was raised in a farm, right? Well, I mean, I knew, gallinero, right? Sure, chickens, chicken feed, the common words, But when you talk about broiler chickens as a science, when you talk about the broiler house as keeping the chickens cool because you want to, preserve their laying egg capabilities. If they're not cool enough, and if they're heat, they're going to lose these capabilities. So there's a whole science behind that. So anyway, Bell proposes precisely that when you do translation, especially written translation, you have to base yourself on certain models. Obviously, meaning your memories, your memory, how that works, and you should be able to not only get the meaning through glossaries and well, the internet right now, it's a great source of finding information for translators and interpreters. Willis uses more approach on the cognition, how these processes in terms of making decisions, identifying the problem. Obviously, you classify the problem, the language in itself. What are we talking about? I mean, my formal education is law, so I can consider myself an expert in legal matters, right? Marco Pugh was mentioning about amparo, the term amparo, right? Either is a personal name, but in the legal field, right? It's actually an habeas corpus. It's the type of you're part of the law. No, that's actually what that means. The habeas corpus in the United States and habeas corpus or amparo in Mexico are two different concepts, but yet they carry almost the same idea. That you can ask a higher law, to protect the citizen for arbitraries committed by by judges or by institutions, right? So anyway, you need to classify the problem. You have to search, collect a lot of information, do deliberation, how you proceed, how are you going to go about if they say certain things, or if they don't provide you with a glossary. Well, you need to think about the topic itself and kind of look for the moment of choice in terms of what word you're going to be using in a particular moment or in a particular concept. Well, you evaluate your translation results always. Once you've done it, once you finish with it, well, evaluate it, find out if you could have done it much better. And usually you find out that yes, you could have used a different word or different meaning. Again, continuing with Bell, she proposes be more descriptive, other than prescriptive, right? This includes, being more syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic. Obviously, if you know the language and if you learn the language in school, well, you know the meaning of the words. That's perfect. That's perfect. Somebody mentioned there that pragmatics deals precisely with context. Everything is with context. It's no good if you know the word. The word or the definition of the word. You need the context. Words are bad. Words are innocent. Words are innocent in a sense until the individual puts context between those words. I understood the word chicken, right? Of course, pollo, right? But broiler, that in itself presents another difficulty. Broiler, what? Right? A broiler, a skillet, on the stove, or the broiler in my oven, right? That's what I understood as a general term, right? But I need to use my pragmatic ability, the context of the situation, in order to put it in the right pragmatic aspect of language, right? Hillary proposes another analysis of translation, which means looking at two perspectives. That's like communicative and social activity, obviously based on all these linguistic theories, right? And of course, the model proposes that you should use all those extra linguistic information that the individual possesses, their experiences, the particular moments that you're going to be doing some kind of particular language, particular feel. You want to be able to kind of read up on everything else. So here to understand what translators actually do, well, they actually do a lot of research before they go into a translation booth, or actually before you actually go into a text. no, and start doing your translation. You evaluate your results of your translation. What this all means? Well, it means that obviously, you use your cognitive simplification skills. Now, that is your possibility as a translator and interpreter to reduce complex problems to something more simpler, the simpler form, according to how we process these capabilities, right? Again, you can go to dictionaries, right, and understand, well, okay, habeas corpus, okay, amparo, similar to the English system, well, I mean, you read up on it and kind of get the idea. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. Oh, so there's an equivalent of words like that. No, again, going back with this idea of a broiler house. Someone tells you, hey, I work in a broiler house. Oh yeah. Well, what do you? Oh, you mean you cook things? No, of course not. No, someone's going to tell you no. Until what do you actually do? Oh, I take care of chickens. Oh, you got a chicken farm? Yeah, that's right. Okay, right. But it's, again, the language is a very specific language in a specific field and area. Obviously, everything deals with culture, social culture. How you approach and how you emphasize certain communicative skills and how these function and how they actually help you. Looking at all the aspects of the language, how we use language as an instrument of social interaction, right? According to Castella, the primary function of language is communication, right? And it's also psychological because, again, psychologically speaking, we're talking about a particular topic might be, might be culturally acceptable in one particular culture and might not be culturally accepted in others, right? In this particular area of being an interpreter, well, that's what you're doing. You're interpreting how it's understanding what they mean by, la cartera, the wallet, instead of the purse or the coin purse or, kind of thing. You need to understand things like that, it sounds very easy, but yet it gets to be complex. But again, your experience kind of teaches you as you go along doing, more and more work. Okay, you can look at some of these other theories and look at their sociocultural approach and and apply these into your everyday accumulation of knowledge. And finally, what does a translator must do? Well, obviously rely on theory, rely on proper decision making, right? And this translation exercise that we do, right? The translator will then, of course, opt to what is the approach you're going to be using in a specific area? What would satisfy my client? Because we always think about, yeah, you're a translator interpreter, but you work for someone. You need to satisfy the needs of those who you work for. Today, in this pandemia, and being locked in, kind of, well, it gives you an open field because you have more time. You can research. You can do a lot of investigation on the internet, kind of, find out, the different areas of where translators can work, right? I've worked in different fields, not only in the field of law or economics or whatever, but again, as far as right, this past work that I done in a broiler house, imagining, how to keep chickens cool, right, in order to keep up their productivity. It's a whole science behind that, right? So translator must be balanced, have a combination of all these approaches, that we mentioned. A translator must also not abandon, the theory behind linguistics. Now you have to go into and read about, how does the mind work? How it's not just someone that's going to emit sounds and giggles and hisses and hear someone breathe. Well, when you hear someone breathe, and especially if they're nervous, you should be able to even read body language. A few years ago, well, actually not few, but about 10 years ago, we had a language teacher who I called him a bluff. Because he was very good at reading body language. He could read the body language and almost anticipate what you were going to say. And of course, he was very good at that. He was able to read your body language until, of course, once I said, hey, buddy, your zipper's down. And he looked, oh, yeah, Robert. Yeah, you're right. Oh, you're a good body cat. Thanks a lot. See you. and he basically went on with his zipper down, right? He never understood what I actually, meant by his zipper was down, until, of course, if I would have, lowered my voice towards the middle of his pants, then he would have understood that that's what I meant, that something was wrong in the middle. And of course, he would look down, and then he would find out, oh, that's what you meant, right? So that's, I call him an English bluffer. He was able to bluff his way through language by reading people's manners and facial gestures. We read things. When there are universal body languages. When someone nods their head, obviously that means yes. When they go side by side, means no. When you shrug your shoulders, means maybe or what. So a translator must not abandon all these theories behind how people acquire language and how we communicate. A translator must, again, be loyal to his work, to his translation work. That's more than I can say. And just to give you an example, right? Here, let me go to the next slide. Well, there's some references there, of course, available there. Here, how would you translate or interpret an image like this? And now I'm putting a question to my audience. How would you translate, an image? Remember, an image is worth 1,000 words. Don't they say that? All right. Oh, how would you interpret this image? Anyone? Here, I need to look at the comments. Where are the comments? I can't see the comments. Okay.
Somebody's asking how can we know which theory we should use?
Well, basically you don't. You kind of go into the field and find out, first of all, what is the text if you're going to be translating a text, or if you're going to be doing interpretation. Well, you have to know what the topic is, what the topic is you're going to be discussing, and then in that particular moment you would know probably what theories you're going to be applying. I still can't see it. Maybe video. Where is? I'll hear more.
Someone said a dog pooping at the street.
Right.
I think the hot dog picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Someone pooped in the street. Okay. Yeah. Probably. Right.
That's the only comment.
Right. Any other comments on that? Right. Well, everybody knows what a hot dog is, no? Right. Perro caliente. Right. No. Or even we borrow this image already into our idiosyncrasy, and we think of un hot dog, period. No, that's borrowing. Okay, you borrow the term, right? But actually, the newspaper, right, also plays an important aspect here, of understanding or interpreting the image, doesn't it? Doesn't the newspaper tell you anything? The newspaper is not just for reading. No, there are other uses of the newspaper. No, don't we? Don't we have other uses of the newspaper? Okay, all right. I thought it would be funny. I thought it would be kind of interesting, to see that. But I guess I'm not causing any problems, or I'm causing some issues there, right? Okay. Well, today, most of my work has been done right at home, in my home office, right? Just through a screen. Basically you interpret. Now you interpret what people want you to do. But of course, it's okay. You have to do research. What kind of language are you going to be using? What particular text, if there's such a text. In this particular case, you can see a bunch of slides here. Well, that in a sense they help you a lot with language. Here I was doing an interpretation on I think nanotechnologies or something. Okay, what do I know about nanocrystals and nanocellulose? I didn't. I've had to research, right? Had to go there and research. What else? Well, technology today, basically the booth for a translator and interpreter. You're sitting way back somewhere, in an audience. That's what you used to do. But now, you're sitting in the comfort of your home, right? With all that technology available to you, the internet, a desktop, a laptop, right? Probably even your phone, right? And you have all of these resources, that can actually help you, right, with your translation activity, with your translation and interpretation skills. You put them into work, right? Oh, sorry about this one. How come this is sideways? Okay, again, this is another interpretation done online. They send, based. Okay, well, you can hear the actual English because I'm using the earplugs, right, to listen to them, and basically you're doing consecutive translation, consecutive or even simultaneous. In this particular case, it was simultaneous translation. Go right on top of the lecture, as has been given. So anyway. This is what I got to offer you. I appreciate your listening in. Right? Thank you. If you have any questions, well, I'm available as always. To consult or I know there are a lot of questions like how much should a translator or interpreter charge? Well, I can tell you that an interpreter can charge between 2,000 pesos an hour, right? An hour to probably even 4,000, right? And guess what? Interpreters only work between 20 and 30 minutes at a time, because it's really mind-boggling. You usually work with assistants. You usually work with another interpreter right next to you, right? What else? I can't see the questions there. Somebody read them for me.
It says, Robert, have you used any function within Zoom that allows you to send more than a single line of audio? Let's say in your case, to send English and Spanish interpretations through different channels.
Yeah, that I have, but believe me, I'm a klutz in terms of using technology. Usually I have someone that sets up the equipment, that lets me know when to come in, that lets me know, or even, that helps me with the slides, moving the slides. Yeah. So I usually rely either on some of my students, or I even rely on technical assistance. But yes, I've done that, and now it's common. It's something that we do on a daily basis now.
Do you find it easier doing simultaneous interpretation online?
Definitely. They're again, you need to do research. You need, to have your client, at least tell you what the topic is going to be about. And now with internet, if they're doctors or chemists or engineers, well, you can actually go on the internet and research and see some of the work already published or printed, or even videos on people, so you can really understand the particular topic they're going to be discussing. Like what happened with me with these engineers that were giving courses here in Tehuacan. They wanted someone to interpret them because they're going to be talking about the broiler house. Oh yes. Oh, broiler house. Oh yeah, it sounds like a restaurant, right? Oh, perfect. No, I'm going to go there and eat free, right? Well, guess what? No, I have news for you. It's very specific, area, of avícolas, and especially here in Tehuacan, right? Good. I still can't see.
They're asking you to explain the image of the hot dog.
Okay, exactly. Good. Okay. Well, interpret it. First of all, look at the image. All right, here we go. Where is it? Right there, right? You can still see it, right? Again, we understand, right, that a dog, actually we understand the idea of the newspaper in terms of keeping pets. Usually we use a newspaper, to pick up their debris or their fetuses. I mean, it's a good way of keeping, or using a newspaper for another source, right? Again, this could be simply either a chili dog. If anybody knew what a chili dog is, right? Again, culture plays an important part here, right? Actually, this, is like a hot dog with frijoles con carne, that would be, or simply, these are just simply beans, right? Or in this case, it's a hot dog, right? Made up to look like, like a salchicha, or like a pup, like a dog, like what is it? Snout? No, it's not schnauzer. What is it? I forget these long dogs.
Dachshund.
Yeah, there you go.
A
Exactly.
dachshund, the hot dog.
Right, the hot dog, exactly. No, so it's a hot dog. No, doesn't, obviously doing his necessities and training. Actually, the idea of here is, well, you're training your hot dog, you're training your dog, right, to poop where you want him to poop. Well, at least that was my interpretation, but I thought it was going to get more reaction than just simply, a hot dog pooping. No, it's actually a dog pooping. The image, you don't want to see the dog actually do it, but you have representations here. And that's what interpretation is all about. No, it's interpreting, images, interpreting what people are actually saying. No, you heard me say that words are innocent, words are neutral, right? In and of themselves, they have no meaning. No. Again, the word broiler has no meaning until someone actually, gives it meaning. No, right? Broiler chicken, right? They're a concept. I never knew about. Well, I mean, of course, I knew no pollos de engorda, right? But you simply call them una granja de pollos. Period. No. But again, doing research, and then you find out that this is a very specialized applied science, right? In keeping chickens healthy and producing, because obviously that's what people want to do, produce more and more eggs, etc., etc. Anyway, that was my interpretation of the hot dog, right? Perro caliente, meaning I thought it would be, everybody would understood that what that actually means. But anyway, again, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, there's somebody asked how long you've studied English.
Well, I grew up in an English-speaking country. I grew up in the United States. I grew up in a small community, Oxnard. I went to Oxnard College, where I went basically from kindergarten, primary, secondary, and obviously high school, right? And then I went to the community college, right, in Oxnard, California, right? Considered southern part of the United States in California. So, well, 25 years of my life, basically, I spent dealing with in understanding the English culture, right? And the other half, or almost now 40 years now back. But I was not born in California, right? I grew up. My parents immigrated when I was just a small baby, right? Child, about between 3 and 4 years old, I think I was, when we moved to the States. So even though I did understand Spanish, luckily my dad was a school teacher, so he kept me, right in tune with Spanish. In this house, you speak Spanish. Outside, you speak whatever you want to do, right? And of course, when I said, "Okay, Daddy, sure, no problem," right? Nada de Daddy. Aquí soy tu papá. And even to emphasize, no, es más, aquí soy tu papito. So I thank my dad for that. And he gave me a profession, right? He really gave me a profession. And actually, my first introduction to interpretation was when my dad had to go to court. One day he left his car in a parking lot. A young kid went in the car and tried to steal his radio. And my dad, grabbed them and beat the shit out of them. All right. So my dad had to go to court. Eventually, when we got to the court, my dad, his English was not that good, so he had an interpreter. And I was really, captured by how well that interpreter, was translating, especially when the district attorney asked if he, they were read his rights when he was arrested, because he was arrested for hitting a young child, right? Well, not a young child, it was an adolescent, right? And as a matter of fact, the police that was there that arrested my dad, right, didn't actually read, because they have to read the text, the exact text, that goes something like, "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." And then I heard that interpreter going, "No tienes el derecho a guardar silencio, todo lo que se diga será." Wow, I was like, impressed. And from then on, right, I was kind of like, tuned. When someone was talking in English, I was interpreting. I was interpreting into Spanish. So when someone talking in Spanish, I was interpreting back in English. And here I am, right? 45, well, actually now 40, 38, 30 years of BUAP, 40 years back in Puebla living. And that's what I do professionally. And I get paid for it, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto.
That's me.
Hola.
Okay.
Te puedes quedar en línea porque te toca presentar la próxima.